Hey everyone, I hope you're doing great. If my voice sounds a little weird, it's because I caught the cold yet again, but I'm getting over it much quicker this time. But in this video, we have something in Minnesota. Is it a regular person or something else? A close encounter with extraterrestrials in Australia on a farm. A man is out getting coyotes off of his property at night when something rather unexpected shows up. Then, a camping trip in a national forest takes a rather strange turn. If this sounds like something you're interested in, pull up a stump with me, and let's get into it. Thank you for watching. In the past, I've basically been a drifter. I've lived all over the east coast of Australia, and I was traveling for work and living out of cars for about 5 years at that point. These days, though, I obviously have a nice house and a stable base in a city. But I do have one story in particular out of many in my travels. This was about 2009. I was 19 at the time, and I was working on a farm in Bangalore with a mate for a couple weeks. The owners have some normal jobs in Brisbane. The farm is just a side project for them. After a few days, they left us be to get the work done. We were staying in their spare rooms. One night, my friend and I are hanging out next to the house, just watching the stars. My friend notices a few stars are moving weird. We see this regularly on the road and think not much of it. We joke about aliens and have a good laugh. One point of light in the sky, though, is moving left slowly. We figure it could be a low-orbiting satellite, but we keep watching it. It gets directly above a large crop of trees near some dam down the hill from us about 200 meters away. It then drops quickly into the trees and disappears, and we both think, holy crap. We were obviously tripping over the incident when we hear this loud as hell rustling from the tree line. We immediately think this is weird because it's 200 meters away and it's this loud. My friend yells something into the distance. The rustling stops. Immediately we assume that there are trespassers on the property and we've been given the responsibility to go Rambo on them. So we start running toward the trees. As we're about halfway down the hill, the rustling starts again. I start to second guess our approach and pause for a second. I look at my mate to ask if we should reevaluate our plan. At the look on his face, he's absolutely crapping his pants. He's a fairly rational dude. I've never seen him scared like this before. He bolts back up the hill without saying a word. Pretty confused, I look back to the tree line. I see two faint white objects moving at the bottom of the tree line directly where the hill levels out. First, I thought that they were cows that had gotten out of a neighboring property. I realized very quickly that they are much too tall to be cows. They had to be over 6 feet at a minimum. My mate has stopped bailing on me for a second and pauses about 50 meters up from where I am and is fixated on the figures. There's two sets of orange points of light that suddenly appear from the top of the beings. It was like as if we had shone a torch into a cat's eyes. Without saying a word, we both turn and run as hard and as fast as we can back toward the house. We get inside, lock the door, turn off the lights. The rest of the night, nothing happened. It was very uneventful. The permanent farmhand on this property is just one guy. He lives in a shack closer to the road. A couple nights earlier, we were walking around, and he came at us with a machete in total panic. We didn't understand why until we experienced what I assume he experiences regularly, just living there alone. Since exams are over, I figure it's time to tell a pretty spooky story. I don't know if it's paranormal or not, but it definitely scared the hell out of me. The other year was my senior year of high school. I live in Colorado, near the Front Range. I have friends, I'll call them Vince and Randy. Basically, we have nothing to do for fun because everyone in the Denver area of Colorado is super uptight and is no fun. Now, there's a national forest land right up in this town called Nederland. You can basically camp there for nothing. All you have to do is pay $5 for a permit or whatever and promise not to burn the forest down. The thing about Nederland is that the surrounding forest has a lot of homeless people, a lot of tweakers and illegal grow-ops and all that stuff that you need to look out for. My dad told me that some famous serial killer used to live up in those woods. It sounds like a great place to go camping, doesn't it? Me, Randy, and Vince debate about bringing weapons along. I have an SKS because I had turned 18. Vincent has a 30-30 bush gun, but we also don't want to get accused of illegal hunting because we don't have a hunting license. We compromise and bring along Randy's dad's .38 revolver. I can't remember the model if that's important to you, so sorry about that. None of us were 21, but we still had them. We get up at 6 a.m. on Friday morning. We head out. We're dressed in your typical attire of people that browse the internet, the Stalker Challenge attire. This is minus the meme gas mask though. I bring along some crappy travel guitar and some stuff to eat. So we get up into the town and we keep driving up into the national forest. Eventually, the paved road becomes dirt. We've been going for a while when we see two guys in four-wheelers coming out of a similar, smaller, diverging road. The lead guy waves for us to stop. This guy looks concerned, and he's asking us if we've seen his cows. We think, what? The dude says he runs a small farm up near the national forest, and last night he had 13 cows go missing. We say no, but Vince puts the guy's number and name in his phone. I realized then that I forgot to bring my phone, and I felt absolutely stupid. Even though there wasn't exactly service up here anyways, it just would have been good to have, I guess. So we drive on, and we end up parking in this small parking area that's intended for campers. We are the only vehicle in sight. We hike up a small dirt trail, about a mile or so. We pitch a tent about 100 yards off the path. The rest of the day was very uneventful. We looked around and explored, admired nature's beauty and all that stuff. That night, we got down for real. We set a small fire and I started playing the guitar. I play some Russian folk song called Kalinka. Vince does that Russian kick dance thing and Randy claps his hands in time. And the point of one of these songs is that it gets faster as you go. So we're having like a competition out of it. I'm seeing how fast I can play guitar. He's seeing how fast he can clap his hands and sing. And Vince is seeing how fast he can do that Russian kick dance. When suddenly we hear a scream echo through the woods. It sounds like a woman being tortured. Vincent stops mid-dance. He ends up losing his balance and falling over. Randy grabs the revolver. I'm thinking, oh crap. Just as I'm about to say that it could be a mountain lion and laugh at them, another scream comes from the other direction. I feel chills run up and down my spine. We do try to laugh it off and say it was animals. Again, we have a .38 revolver. We should be okay. We try to go to sleep. There's no more noises after that. The next morning, we end up waking up late, but we still want to go exploring. We walk down this sort of downward incline that just goes away from the tent. The tent is barely out of sight when this Some weird smell hits us. It's not what you're thinking. It smells like burned hair and rubber or something. Randy points out about 30 feet away that there are the remains of a fire, just ashes and some half-burned logs in a circle about 5 feet in diameter. It looks somewhat fresh. The ashes are still warm. Vince says, "Guys, how did we not notice this from our tent last night?" "I don't know," I say. Suddenly, Randy is like, "What the hell is this?" He just points at the ashes, and it takes me like 5 seconds to realize what he's upset about. What I at first thought were some smaller logs, on closer inspection, were actually bones. Not like chicken bones, but a spine and ribs, all smashed and burnt and stuff. Those are not animal bones. We don't touch anything at the site, and we just go back to our own, really weirded out and scared. We were half expecting to see our campsite trashed, but everything looks fine. This adventure actually took us quite a bit of time, most of the day, and we don't want to go back to the car at night. We have a subdued dinner and take turns on watch with the gun. We all tried to act casual, but we all knew that something was very off. Vince and I wake up in the middle of the night to Randy yelling, "F off, I have a gun." His voice sounds scared. He's stressed out. He has his back against the tent opening. He says that he saw something moving about 40 feet away. He couldn't quite tell what it looked like, but he could hear it walking on all 4 legs. I tell him that it had to be a deer or something. We don't sleep the rest of the night. At dawn, we pack our stuff up and we get ready to head out. I'm rolling up the tent, which is basically a tarp on sticks, when I notice something is wrong. On the side that Randy had been facing away from the previous night, there's a muddy handprint on the tent wall, but the fingers are all wrong. I show the guys. None of us obviously made this. We decide that we've been out here long enough. We don't stop for breakfast. We book it a mile back to the car. We hop in and drive all the way back to town. We end up having to eat something around lunchtime. We notice that the TV set is set to a local station. There's a missing person warning out for a local man who disappeared on Friday night. They show the picture, and we could swear that it was the dude that we met on the road, the guy looking for his cows. It says the guy and his son didn't come back to the farm. We go to the local police, and we report seeing him on Friday. We also tell the cops about the bones and the ashes. The cops give us weird looks because we're dressed like we were doing the stalker challenge. A ranger comes with us back to our campsite, and we try to find the fire pit with the bones, but we can't seem to locate it. We show them some pictures that Vince took, but honestly, they didn't look super convincing. And I'm aware of how convenient it's going to sound that I don't have the pictures, but I didn't take any. I didn't have my phone. So there it is. That's what happened. We think it was the same guy from the news broadcast that we saw, but the guy had a 4-wheeler helmet on, and the names don't really seem to match up, but we could have misheard him too. So we don't have much other information than what I've given you. This story isn't mine, but it came from a very good friend of mine, and we've told a lot of people, and it really got to me the first time I heard it, so I like sharing it. Anyway, just some backstory. My high school town was pretty small. My graduating class had around 200 people in it, I think. It is also kind of in the middle of nowhere. There's really only one main road going through the center. and all the other roads are back roads going through the woods. Now, I'm going to retell it from the first person perspective because it's a lot easier and it sounds a lot less awkward. So, I'm going to do my best. It was pretty screwed up. I don't even know how else to describe it. Just thinking about what could have happened terrifies me. It was January of junior year. I was dating Kayla, not her real name. We wanted to fool around, but we didn't have anywhere to do it. So we decided to find a random road where we could park my car. We had done this a couple of times before without any incidents. So, at like 2 in the morning, we drove all the way down to Adobe, and if you're from there, you know the road by the gas station. We got to the end, and there was a horse trail branching off into the woods. It was pretty wide, so we decided to drive to the end of the horse trail. When we got to the end, I turned the car around so that the woods were to our back and the road was to our front. This way, I could see if there was another car coming down the trail. So, if you know Kayla at all, she's pretty crazy. All she wanted to do was, you know. So I was thinking, not with my brain. We did the deed probably 4 times, and it was pretty great. We were taking a break from this, cuddling in the back seat, when things started to get weird. There was a loud noise coming from the woods. It sounded kind of like screaming, but I'm pretty sure it was a dying animal. It definitely didn't sound human. Now this did put me on edge, but I wasn't super concerned. 10 minutes later, we hear more screaming. This time though, it sounded more human-like, like a woman. Now this scream went on for probably a minute, almost exclusively without taking a single breath. So I'm freaking out and I want to leave, but Kayla didn't really seem to care about what was going on, and she was trying to convince me that everything was fine and that we should stay a little longer. I was too distracted by the thought of more, you know, so I decided to stick around. More accurately, once again, I was not thinking with my brain. The screaming had stopped though, so I slowly settled back in. About 20 minutes later, we hear a very distinct voice yelling in the woods. "Help! Help me!" It was a male voice, and it sounded like it was maybe 50 meters away. Now, I'm definitely freaking out. Even Kayla was starting to get a little scared. She wanted to get out and see if someone was hurt, but I told her F that, we're staying right here in the car. So we waited out. 10 minutes later, we hear it again. "Help me, please." Really loud this time, and closer. We both fell silent. The windows were fogged up so we couldn't see outside. Finally, logic kicks in, and I start to get ready to get the hell out of there. I start getting dressed and looking for my keys. I climbed into the front seat when a pickup truck came from somewhere off the path about 100 meters in front of us. The truck pulled over to the side and parked. A guy gets out and starts shining a red flashlight around the road and then into the woods. I'm frozen in fear. Kayla's grabbing my arm and telling me not to leave until this guy does. He eventually starts wandering closer to the edge of the road near the woods. I start to breathe a little easier and continue to look for my keys. Kayla started to say she found the key, but before she could, right outside the car, we hear the yelling, help me, please." And this time, it's close, very close. Kayla slams the keys into my hand and I peel out as fast as possible. I'm pretty sure that I screwed my car up. I'm doing 70 down this crappy dirt path. We start approaching the truck, and I see the guy with the red light turn around. I just floor it past him. I drive Kayla straight home, and I remember telling her, "I don't care what the consequences are with your parents. You are going home right now. We may have just seen something terrible." I go home. I tell my mom that my stomach hurt, and I went to sleep. The next morning, I was going bowling with a friend, and I told him about what happened. He said he wanted to go back there, where it happened, to see if there were any footprints, because he didn't believe me. There was a lot of snow on the ground, but it hadn't snowed that night, so there should be clear footprints. We drove back out there, and sure enough, there were footprints. And these footprints told a story. My friend was studying to be a cop or something in forensics, so he was already considering himself an expert on evidence and all that stuff. I actually have no idea if he knows what he's talking about at all, but a lot of what he was saying made sense, logically anyways. We went back. First, we check out where it appeared the truck had stopped. The night before, I had thought the truck had come out of the woods and onto the path, but it was clear now that it had come down the road, just like we had. You could see tire tracks in the snow where it had pulled over. You could also see the footprints where the red light guy got out. We followed the prints into the woods. It only went about 20 meters back. They led into a huge pile of deer bones, and when I say huge, there were at least 20 different deer skulls. The returning footprints just led back to the truck, so we decided to check out the area where Kayla and I were. This is where things got more interesting. The first thing we noticed when we pulled up was the place that I had sped off. You could tell I was hauling ass. There were a lot of footprints around the car. It must have been a common place for people to park, so we went into the woods behind where I was parked and towards the direction of the screams for help had come from. We eventually found some footprints, and there were no other ones in the area. They looked fresh and big, size 12s, my friend guessed, so we followed them. They went in the direction of where my car had been parked. What was weird was the way they got closer. The footprints would zigzag in the general direction of my car, but once they got close enough to be in viewing distance, the prints would stop every so often. You could tell that whoever or whatever was the maker of these prints had stopped and stayed in these spots for a while. My friend pointed out that the prints at these spots were more defined and that the snow was melted more, indicating that it had waited at these spots, and all these spots were facing my car. The footprints continued to get closer to my car, stopping every now and then. Then they get to 5 or 10 meters from my car before they stop for the last time. This time, though, you can tell that he wasn't standing. He was down on all fours. There was a clear, defined print of someone's hand and knees. After that, the footprints start to get really spread out. It looked like that whoever or whatever this was sprinting after my car when I sped off. I have my theories and thoughts and stuff, but what are some of yours? And that's about it. I think that whoever or whatever was calling for my friend and his girlfriend to get out was probably not having good intentions about what he wanted to do to them. But still, it doesn't really explain the voices, how there was a man and a woman, the deer bones. There's a lot of unanswered questions that we just don't have any explanation for. What was it? This was about 10 years ago, back in 2013. I was out hunting coyotes in the cornfields, and I was hunting at night. I'm hunting over a gut pile of some jacklighted deer. So I shoot 2 coyotes, and I leave them there, hoping for more to come. And then, over the course of a half an hour, some weird things begin to happen. All the sounds that you hear in the forest, the bugs and the birds and all those nighttime noises, just slowly die off, like the fade out in a rock song. And then the clouds go over the moon, and I'm left in complete darkness, like can't even see your own hand in front of your face. Then I hear something, like a crunching, and then a scrape noise, and tearing, and more crunching. Slowly, I begin to get my sight back. The clouds move away from the moon, and I see something silvery, very low to the ground, and about 8 feet long, gnawing on dead coyotes by the gut pile. I assumed that it was a pair of coyotes that had laid down to dine. It explains the length. Night vision sucks for distance recognition. I bring my rifle to shoulder. I sight approximately where I assume the shoulder or hip would be. 243 ballistic tips are more than enough to ruin a coyote, even with a hip shot. I fire, and then it just kinda stands up. It only gained about 6 inches in height, but now I can clearly see that this is one creature. It only has 4 legs, but the eyes, God, those eyes were huge, and they were red, but the pupils were a different color, a color that glints off of light, and I swear its eyes had to be bigger than like half a coyote's entire head. Huge, I mean. So I work the bolt, and I fire again. I watch the round impact and puff off dust and hair 3 inches beside one eye. It just kind of saunters off, almost like I hit it with a cork gun. I work the bolt faster than I have ever worked a bolt before. I keep firing at it. It's now out of sight. I rapidly reload and go back to my truck as fast as I can. I grab my AR, 8 mags, and this huge battery spotlight. This spotlight was 1 million candle power, so I felt better about going back. There was blood and fur everywhere. The dead coyote is bitten clean in half, like one bite. The fur is like redhead red, like picture the most redhead person that you know, and that was the color of it. It was like I'd shot a pipe full of cheap wigs. It was weird. I noticed the blood trail. The blood looks black. That's not right, I think to myself. Not under incandescent light. I take a Walmart receipt from my pocket. I dab it in the blood. The blood is definitely black. I shine the light all over the wood line a little frantically. Immediately, the face and eyes of that thing light up. It was just sitting there, watching. It's sitting like a dog, but it's 6 feet tall. Crazy. But then I also think that its legs weren't that long. I move the light up and down on its chest. It's leaning on an old fence post like a human, covered in that fake redhead red fur looking stuff. I get a little afraid. I end up mag dumping it. It appears to be completely unconcerned, even though there's now black blood clearly visible on its fur. It just seems to watch me as I back away and get back to my truck. I haul ass into town and get the game warden. The game warden goes back out with me at first light. He's armed for a bear. The coyotes and deer are now reduced to pretty much nothing. Some of the bones are cleaned, like clean white bone, and they're still in the skeletal position. No predator eats like that. No predator is that clean. We find the blood and fur. The game warden takes the samples in this evidence bag that he had. I go back home. I be informed immediately as I step in the door that the DNR has already called with an analysis, and I know for a fact that I beat the game warden back to town, and it would still take a long time to get those results. The DNR said it was a bobcat, and for me not to worry about it. My state hasn't had a confirmed bobcat sighting since the 1930s. That thing was easily 20 times the size of a bobcat. I called the DNR back, asking them what the hell's going on. I get briskly told to drop the subject. I think the government was field testing some kind of sentient bioweapon. There's no other explanation I can think of. They obviously knew about it. It absorbed at least 2 good hits from a 243 and at least 1 good hit from a 5.56 Swift A-frame. Nowadays, I don't go back to that part of the farm after dark unless I absolutely have to. So, what did you think of those? Let me know down in the comments. Do you have an encounter of your own? I have an email in the description below that you can send them to if you want to. I also have a PayPal and a Patreon down there as well, if you want to donate to the channel that way. Super thanks is also good too, but so is just viewing the video. If you liked the video, maybe consider liking and subscribing. It's getting close to 20k. And here are a couple other videos that you might like as well. Thank you for pulling up a stump, and remember to stay hydrated, get some fresh air, wash your hands, and wash your ass, I guess. And the snow is finally melting, so I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.